Yeah, there's so many dimensions to that discussion. One is that the '60s, the movement that happened in the '60s, one was the first that happened on television. So obviously, the racist violence that was perpetrated lot by poor whites was on television, and it was it's very you know it's very easy to ignore the union struggles, the small community organizing struggles, the efforts that were being made, not just by these organizations but plenty of others. People like Peggy Terry was already an anti-racist by the time she met Join, a southern woman who migrated up here to Chicago and worked hand in hand with Martin Luther King, worked on the housing desegregation marches, and really became a great example of what might be possible.
Recently I was listening to public radio, WBEZ here in Chicago, and I know that some other people heard it on the West Coast, and I hear this voice. And I think they were playing some of Studs Terkel's interviews, since Studs Terkel, who was a guest on Live from the Heartland, and God rest his soul, or the great spirits rest his soul. There's this Southern woman talking, and all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, I know this woman, and it turned out it was Peggy Terry, and she was talking about. When she and her family were in like Oklahoma, down in Texas, and they were picking melons and fruit, and how she talked about her own kind of racist feelings, and then how those changed. And I remember Peggy way back talking to me about being involved in Birmingham during the struggle there and getting involved with the Congress of Racial Equality. So here's a woman, a working class, poor Southern white woman who, when I met her, was on welfare and living in Uptown, who had already gotten involved in the struggle for justice. What did you find out about Peggy Terry?
Well, one thing Studs Terkel, his work with Peggy was fantastic. Some of it, I don't know if it came out in the interviews, if it was edited out. Almost sounds like she just had an anti-racist awakening when she saw Martin Luther King get beat up, and all of a sudden started to connect the dots. That's certainly what that incident that's in his book is certainly a catalyst. But she was also married to Gil Terry, who was a member of the Communist Party. That she was a strong union woman, was definitely part of a movement, and movements helped shape her consciousness. So, as in telling her story, I don't want to kind of do what was done to Rosa Parks, that she was just a seamstress who was just tired one day and decided to sit on the.
No, she had something happening.
Yeah, so I think that's what we found out about Peggy. I think Peggy's a great example about how you don't have to be perfect to make to be a part of this movement. She got into arguments with everybody. She was opinionated. She was down home, but she really, she constantly challenged both her own community and the new influx, the new migrants to Chicago in '64, with the students to really challenge themselves to transform their city and transform the world.
Just on Peggy Terry, so people know that in 1968, I know that the Peace and Freedom Party in California were going to run. They did run Eldridge Cleaver of the Black Panther Party for president. And they had tried to get Students for Democratic Society to put up either Carl Oglesby or somebody. Carl was the president of SDS then. And out in Chesterton, Indiana, on this farm, we had a meeting right after the Democratic Convention, and the SDS said they weren't going to run a candidate. And then I piped up and said, well, we could run Peggy Terry.
Absolutely.
And we did. And so I was the campaign manager, and I got to travel around a little bit. We actually got run out of a parking lot at a Kroger parking lot in Louisville by the Klan when I was playing the guitar, and Peggy and I and others were singing We Shall Overcome. And next thing I know, here came all these white people with rocks, and the police just let them come through. I mean, they didn't protect. So we had gone through some stuff together. I would be interested in knowing from you, James Tracy, what other people you met and interviewed in the process of both the Join story and the Rising Up Angry story in your new book, that really, that you want to call some attention to now. Who inspired you?
Well, Obviously, yourself and Steve Tapas was the first Rising Up Angry veteran who took time to talk to me, check me out, check the credentials and all of that.
We did check you out.
Yeah, no, definitely. Janet Fennerty was really inspiring. She still lives here in Chicago. She's a public school teacher, and her understanding of how Rising Up Angry could start organizing the greasers out on the corners, and then incorporate feminist work dealing with with the health clinic, and how it didn't have to be either or. And I think that we as leftists sometimes don't know how to say and, that it that it could be men and women, black and white and Latino. And seeing a project, she really explained how a project could evolve and not lose what was special about it in the beginning, but still grow to incorporate new understandings of what liberation meant. I think that really stuck in my mind. Diane Fager was really wonderful about explaining how important it was for there to be an intergenerational dialogue between younger leftists and older leftists, and how that was really core to sustainability.
When you talk about the women in Rising Up Angry, and some of them came around to join too. I mean, I'm thinking of Stormy Brown or Diane Libman, Mary Wozniak, now Mary Driscoll, Chris George. You had Virginia Bowers, who was a Southern white woman out of Arkansas. You had Diane Fager. You had Marilyn Katz in Join. You had a lot of people, and it was a challenging issue, because I remember when we got to Rising Up Angry, some of the young greaser street guys who we were involved with responded to some women's education that we were doing in the organization by Sisters Run It, Right or Wrong, was what they responded, and that just that lit the fire. And so that we really had some serious go-arounds around respect and equality for women. And it became a very major organizing point of organization in the neighborhood. And we're not only talking about to these white working class kids, some of them in border territory between black and white or Latino and white, about race and people of other races and ethnicity, but also about treating the sisters with respect. And it's what hit me throughout this was that human spirit really could rise above what you had thought they were.